How's it going, YouTube? Inspector Havoc here, and I cannot wait to bring you this first episode of Inspecting Units. So without further ado, let's get into it. First up, the Knights. The War Elephant and the Knight match each other with 4 melee armor, but the Elephant has significantly more HP at 1400, compared to the Knight's 230 HP. Here is a more detailed breakdown, as well as the Lancer, who is the same as the Knight. The total cost for the Elephants is 3,000 food and 2,000 gold, while for the Knights it is 2,140 food and 2,100 gold. As you can see, 4 out of 5 Elephants remain. Next up, the Spearmen. Lacking the stats of either the Knight or the Elephant, the Spearman has no melee armor and only 9 attack. However, the Spearman makes up for this in 2 areas. First of all, it is an anti-cav unit, which provides it with a significant attack boost against any enemy cavalry. The second area that Spearmen make up for this is in their cheap cost. 62 cost, 3720 food, and 1240 wood, and a staggering 50 Spearmen survive. Next up, the Camel Rider. While the Camel Rider has more HP than the Knight, it lacks the same attack and has no melee armor, which puts it at a significant disadvantage. The Camel Rider's strength then comes from its boosted damage like the Spearmen against cavalry, as well as an aura that debuffs nearby enemy cavalry's damage. The Camel Rider also happens to cost a lot more food than gold, coming in at a total of 3780 food and 1260 gold. But the Elephants win again. This time, the Springhold. The Springhold lacks any sort of melee armor, but if it's in melee, it's already in trouble. Both of these units are considered siege, and therefore have significant bonuses against each other. By using one less elephant, their total resources equal each other perfectly, with a total of 4,000. But in the end, the elephants prevail. Finally, the Crossbow. As a ranged unit, the Crossbow lacks any melee armor. However, its damage targets the elephant's much weaker 2 ranged armor. In addition, the Crossbow gains bonus damage against the Elephant because the Elephant is considered heavy. Against 5 Elephants, our 42 Crossbows total 3360 food and 1680 gold. And despite being forced into melee, 20 Crossbows remain. Now for the bonus round, the blah. Unlike its counterpart in the other factions, the French Crossbowman starts with 1 melee armor. In addition to this, after researching a technology through the archery range, the French Crossbowman gains not 1, not 2, but 5 melee armor. This brings their armor to a total of 6, versus the Crossbowmen from other factions, 0. All other stats between the two, including their price, are exactly the same, except the cost of that single upgrade. With this change, 8 additional crossbows survive, giving us a grand total of 28. First up, the bad. Camel Riders are an anti-cav unit, however they underperformed in these tests due to elephants also being anti-cav and having superior stats. While their aura is good, and a few sprinkled in might be beneficial, you are better served using different units. Knights and Springholds performed about how I expected. The Knights took a while to die, but didn't end up killing too many elephants, while the Springholds died instantly when the elephants got there, but killed plenty while the slow-moving elephants were still trying to make their way in. The biggest winners were the Spearmen and the Crossbows. While these were the expected counters, I was surprised to see just how well they did. Despite having no protection, the ranged Crossbows managed to keep almost half of their numbers while taking out all of the elephants. In the case of the French Crossbows, they kept more than half their numbers. In addition to being easier to replace anyway, the Crossbows managed to save units totaling 1,600 food and 800 gold, and even more in the case of the French Crossbows. But all of this pales in comparison to our biggest winner today, the Spearmen. Being not only the cheapest, but also the fastest producing unit out of our list, the Spearmen managed to lose only 12 out of the 62 they started with. This performance completely eclipses all of the other tests. The Spearmen by far won. The total cost and losses for the Spearmen is 720 food and 240 wood. But I hear what you're saying now. But Inspector, we can't have only Spearmen. And while you're right, the crossbows mixed in and some Springholds behind to deal with any enemy siege should work just fine. And if you're worried about enemy bowmen, then switch out the crossbows for some knights who manage to not only tank the elephants quite well, but will easily deal with any enemy archers. If there's a unit you would like me to cover in a later video, please let me know in the comments down below. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Inspecting Counters. If you did, please leave a like below and subscribe. It really, really helps out the channel. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.